Hey folks, today I'm going to talk a bit about Xi Jinping. This guy has written so many books, and they're all bestsellers. I'm really curious, about how much moolah he's raking in from those book deals. So today's just a bit of some juicy gossip about how much cash Xi Jinping is really raking in from these gigs. So folks, do you know who the hottest best-selling author in China is right now? Is it Zhang Yuanji, the king of children's stories? Word has it that his books have sold tens of millions of copies altogether. Then there's Liu Cixin, the sci-fi writer who wrote The Three-Body Problem. They say his book sold a whopping 30 million copies worldwide, almost on par with Harry Potter, and he raked in several billion in royalties. But let me tell y'all, he ain't the hottest selling author in China either. And there is that novelist, Yu Hua, who wrote To Live. Oh, that one novel, a real thin one, sold over 10 million copies, setting a record. That book made bank, raking in 30 or 40 million, but he also isn't China's best-selling author. I'm here to tell y'all about the hottest best-selling author in China right now. He goes by the name Xi Jinping, and he's also the president of China and general secretary of the Communist Party of China. Y'all can check out the all-category bestseller list for the past few months. Almost all of the top 10 books in this list are written by Xi Jinping alone. Every once in a while, a few other authors might pop in and show their faces for a hot minute, and then they quickly dip out. Y'all gotta know that this all-category book ranking is just something else. The stats are calculated monthly, and it doesn't differentiate between categories, so novels, poetry, reference books, political essays, and so on are all included. So, think about it, because some reference books actually sell a whole lot of copies, like those used for the grad school entrance exam, right? Every year, millions of people across the country want to take the postgraduate entrance exam, so they all got to buy this one prep book. But these books are actually no match compared to how prevalent Xi Jinping's works are now. It's like comparing apples to oranges, So, can you believe it? Xi Jinping is China's top best-selling author now. For real. And this ain't just a recent thing. It's been going on for years. Not just a few months, man. He has been absolutely dominating this all-category book ranking for years now. It's not even just this ranking either. Almost all of the top 10 books on the social science book ranking list are all by Xi Jinping. So right now, Xi Jinping is really the most badass writer in China. China's leaders not only run the country, but Xi also managed to become a best-selling author, topping the national charts on top of it. If I'm being honest, it's certainly not for the good of the party and the country. Of course, being the president of this country isn't exactly a cakewalk, but as a best-selling author, he must be living the high life.
Selected works of Xi Jinping, Volume 1, Volume 2, have been translated into Mongolian, Tibetan, Uyghur, Kazakh, Korean, Yi, Zhuang, and 7 other ethnic language editions. They will be published nationwide soon. This will further promote the thorough learning and implementation of Xi Jinping's new era of socialism, with Chinese characteristics among the cadres and masses of ethnic minorities nationwide. To consciously, in terms of ideology, politics, and action, maintain a high degree of unison with Comrade Xi Jinping at the core of the Party Central Committee. To comprehensively build a modern socialist country and unite and strive for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
If we want to know how much money Xi Jinping made from his books, first we gotta find out how many books he wrote in total and how many copies were sold. Then we can do the math on the royalties and get a rough idea. First of all, how many books did Xi Jinping actually write? We already did a rough estimate real quick. Xi Jinping has written about 140 books since he started out. His earliest book was written in 1992. Back in 1992, Xi Jinping was running for the position of vice mayor in Xiamen. But they had some reforms in place, so they held multi-candidate elections, and he ended up not getting on the ballot. So the relevant departments arranged for Xi Jinping to be the local party secretary in Ningde City. It's said that Xi Jinping had been working his tail off since he got to Ningde. In 3 months, he visited all 9 counties in Ningde. Then he went and wrote a book called Out of Poverty. Ningde is a relatively poor place in Fujian province, so this book by Xi Jinping is a compilation of some of his speeches and conference remarks during his time in Ningde. It's titled Out of Poverty. He had hoped to change the backward, poverty-stricken appearance of Ningde at that time. The second book was written in 1996. Xi Jinping was already the deputy governor of Fujian province at that time. He has this one book called A New Exploration of Yan Fu's Thought that he was also the chief editor of. This book is actually a collection of academic papers. Xi Jinping also wrote a 700-word preface as deputy provincial governor. So this book, strictly speaking, ain't really his book. It's a book edited by him. By 1997, Xi Jinping was studying for a graduate degree in ideological and political education at Tsinghua University. He wrote a doctoral dissertation called The Tentative Study of Agricultural Marketization. This later got published, but as for whether he wrote it or his secretary did, we just don't know. Later in 2007, Xi Jinping came out with a pretty famous book called Zhejiang, China, A New Vision for Development. This is the most important book Xi Jinping put out before he rose to the top of the Central Committee. He got transferred from Fujian province to Zhejiang province at that time. First, he was the governor. Then he became the provincial party secretary. During his tenure as the leader in Zhejiang, he used the pen name Zhexin to write some opinion pieces for Zhejiang Daily. The book is all about some societal phenomena or some policies, and he writes some of his own opinions about it. Why is this book so important then? Xi Jinping has written a total of 140 books, but he's not really the one putting pen to paper for most of them. If y'all have read the book, Zhejiang, China, A New Vision for Development, then you can see that this person's writing style and language level pretty much jump off the page. The overall writing level isn't particularly high, and his writing style is also pretty consistent, although there may be a secretary who polished it up a bit. But through this book, you can see Xi Jinping's real writing skills. Then, in 2012, Xi Jinping became the president of China and the general secretary of the Communist Party of China. After that, there was a whole team dedicated to helping him write books. This one institution, the Party Literature Research Center of the CPC Central Committee, is basically all about churning out books for the party and state leaders. Since 2014, Xi Jinping has been cranking out books non-stop. First off, there's this pretty important book series called Xi Jinping, The Governance of China. The first one was published in 2014. Afterward, there's been a second, third, and now fourth book.
The publication and distribution of the fourth volume of Xi Jinping, The Governance of China, is aimed at motivating party members, officials, and the masses to thoroughly study and implement Xi Jinping's thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for the new era. The victorious convening of the 20th National Congress of the party is of great significance in helping the international community to timely understand the latest developments of this important ideology.
On the official website of the Party Literature Research Center of the CPC Central Committee, there are already 43 books by Xi Jinping. This number is staggering because this Party Literature Research Institute not only published books for Xi Jinping, but also for other party and state leaders. Mao Zedong had a total of 22 books. Deng Xiaoping had 12. Jiang Zemin has put out 8 books, while Zhou Enlai has come out with 10. Hu Jintao only published 4 books. Xi Jinping has already put out 43 books so far. Can you believe that? He's already surpassed all the previous party and state leaders. So Xi Jinping has cranked out a total of 140 books up to now, and he's still churning something out every month. In the mix are some of his letters and whatnot. So Xi Jinping is a big deal in terms of his writings. First off, the selection is super diverse and massive in quantity. Next, we got to look at the stats. At first, I thought this all-category book ranking had its own sales figures, but after a closer look, nope. When I got on this website, I searched high and low and couldn't find any information about the sales for Xi Jinping's books. Later, I asked some friends in the publishing world back home. They all said, oh, this is top secret, ain't gonna tell you. So I actually hoped to find out Xi Jinping's book sales figures through a public channel. I've been searching for days and still haven't found anything. So we gotta look in other places, because Xi Jinping's book sales have some public reports, you know, so we gotta try to tally up the stats for Xi Jinping's books based on these public reports. For example, Xi Jinping's 2 most important books are Xi Jinping, The Governance of China, and selected readings of Xi Jinping's works. The first book was released from October 2014 to the first half of 2015. People's Daily came out with an article saying, Xi Jinping, The Governance of China, has already sold a whopping 16 million copies. In just half a year, dang, you gotta think, this is just incredible. in the latter half of the year, Xinhua news agency reported that Xi Jinping, the governance of China, began to be distributed in over 100 countries worldwide with a global circulation of 5.4 million copies. At that time, English, French, German, Hebrew, Bengali, and other books had a global circulation of 5.4 million copies. So, think about it. This book has been released for about a year, and the total number of copies sold domestically and internationally is almost 20 million. That's a freaking mind-blowing number. Then, one after the other, he kept churning out the second, third, fourth books non-stop. They were about the same. All of them were basically dominating the top spot in the overall book rankings. So in the past couple of years, there's been a release of selected readings from Xi Jinping's works. The circulation of each publicly reported copy averages over 10 million copies.
Our station recently received a notice from the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China about studying the selected readings of Xi Jinping's works, volumes 1 and 2. The notice pointed out that the publication of selected readings of Xi Jinping's works was a major decision made by the Central Committee of the Communist Party. Now, the first and second volumes of selected works of Xi Jinping have been published and distributed. This is an important matter regarding the politics of the party and the country. The notice pointed out that studying selected readings of Xi Jinping's works is a major political mission of adhering to Xi Jinping thought on socialism, with Chinese characteristics for a new era, while forging unity and strength. The party committees at all levels should make studying selected readings of Xi Jinping's works a top priority and place it in a position of great importance. Closely integrate learning and implementation of the spirit of the 19th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, as well as the study and implementation of Xi Jinping thought on socialism, with Chinese characteristics for a new era. Coordinate and encourage all party members and cadres to engage in dedicated learning.
Well, we can actually estimate for a sec. Just these 4 volumes of Xi Jinping, The Governance of China, alone have the lowest circulation, with the 4th one coming out recently. In total, the circulation is still over 10 million copies. He sold over 10 million copies of the first volume in the first year, and he's been releasing new books ever since. So I reckon even the most conservative estimate for the combined sales of this one set would be around 50 million copies. If you want a higher estimate, we're talking 80 to 100 million copies, including the 2-volume set of selected readings of Xi Jinping's works. So just these 2 most important books by Xi Jinping have a circulation of around 100 mil, and there are so many other books as well. I reckon the total circulation can't be less than 100 to 150 million.
Selected readings of Xi Jinping's works, Volume 1 and Volume 2, presented in traditional characters with a vertical layout and 16mm format, comprise a total of 16 volumes, neatly packaged in 2 rows. The books boast elegant and exquisite binding, enhanced by unique printing materials and techniques, imbuing them with a rich Chinese cultural essence. These volumes are in the form of traditional Chinese thread-bound books. The publication of the first and second volumes of selected readings of Xi Jinping's works not only highlights the literary value of this important work, but also enriches its variety of editions, adding another significant contemporary classic to our country's collection of traditional thread-bound books.
So the next question is, how much is Xi Jinping earning in royalties? First things first, we got to figure out whether the leaders of the party and the country are getting paid for writing these books. And you can bet your bottom dollar that they are, for sure. Everyone knows that in the past, Chairman Mao was raking in the most royalties. I used to say that Mao always wore patched up pajamas every day, making him seem really industrious. But actually, Mao was freaking loaded, man. He was the richest dude in all of China at the time. Mao's dough all came from his writing fees, believe it or not. When Chairman Mao passed away, Wang Dongxing was cleaning up his personal assets at the end of 1976 and found out that Chairman Mao had almost 76 million yuan in the People's Bank of China. This is just one account. Eventually, it was leaked that Mao's account had more than 110 million in royalties. When that number was made public, a lot of people were really shocked. Think about it. In 1976, 70 or 80 million in royalties would be equivalent to about 10 billion today. So after this number came out, people came out to try and debunk it. They said, there's just no way there's that much money. It's all just a bunch of rumors. Mao Zedong only made a total of 1.4 million yuan in royalties in his entire life. A staff member who worked closely with Mao Zedong also came out and said, all of these claims are just slandering Chairman Mao. But Chairman Mao Memorial Hall has kept a ton of important personal archives of Mao Zedong. Some of these personal archives have even been published into books. One of the documents mentioned Mao Zedong's annual royalties. They revealed that in 1960, Mao Zedong's royalties amounted to 230,000 yuan. In 1960, it was the time of the Great Chinese Famine. At that time, the leaders of the party and the country were all taking pay cuts. Chairman Mao's regular monthly salary was 400 bucks. Zhou Enlai earned a little bit less than him, around 300 bucks. So, like, Mao's income for this year is equivalent to like 50 years of Zhou Enlai's salary, or something like that. So by 1967, Chairman Mao's royalty account had racked up a whopping 5.7 million bucks. Later, during the Cultural Revolution, we all know that Mao Zedong started to publish selected works of Mao Zedong, the Little Red Book, Poetry of Mao Zedong. So at that time, Mao Zedong was earning a lot of money. Then by 1976, his earnings had piled up to 7 or 8 million. I'm telling you all this to point out that the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party Central Committee get paid for writing books, and they get a lot of money for it. After the Mao era, other people also received payment for their works. After Zhu Rongji retired, everyone knows he wrote several books. Of course, it ain't actually his writing, it's all done by his secretary. Because Zhu Rongji is such a great talker, his books all sold like crazy. They say his books have sold over 8 million copies combined. At least that's what the stats from a few years back say. Now, of course, his earnings from authoring these books weren't actually made public, but we can use some news reports as a reference. In 2013, Zhu Rongji made it onto the China Forbes Charity Rich list. That year, he donated over 20 million yuan. In 2014, he donated over 10 million yuan again. Later, Zhu Rongji directly set up a fund to provide schools with nutritious lunches, desks, chairs, and other items. But you can tell from this that Zhu Rongji also got paid for his books. So, they all get paid, but most of them use that money to make donations. Again, the reason I'm mentioning all this is to make it painfully obvious to everyone that the current party and state leaders get paid for their writing. Even though most of these books weren't written by themselves, they were written by their secretaries. The People's Daily has also mentioned that in the past, when party and state leaders wrote books, their royalties were the same as those of ordinary folks. So what's the standard pay in China for this kind of thing? Generally speaking, the standard royalty rate for first edition printing in the publishing industry is between 7% and 10%, depending on your specific category. But the higher the circulation of this book, the higher the percentage the author receives. So according to this standard, let's calculate it again. How much do you reckon Xi Jinping can rake in for his works? We just tallied up Xi Jinping's 140 books, especially after becoming a leader of the party and the country. He's estimated to have sold over 100 million copies of those books, and they ain't cheap, I reckon. I saw some going for as high as 85 bucks a pop. So if we crunch the numbers, even with a super conservative 7% rate of return on these books, Xi Jinping's current income from royalties is also between 500 million to 1 billion. I'm using the most conservative method of calculation, like ever. So, you reckon he's not the hottest selling author in China, huh? Which best-selling author of yours can compare their royalty income to Xi Jinping's? Can Zheng Yuanjie measure up? What about Liu Tixin? They don't even hold a candle to Xi Jinping, not even close. Of course, there's something else going on here. Right now, the relevant authorities haven't actually announced whether Xi Jinping really took that royalty money, because the wealth and income of China's party and state leaders are all hush-hush. Because maybe Xi Jinping didn't even take a dime for it. The entirety of his pay went to charity, totally possible. But we didn't see any reports of him donating the contribution fee. According to my understanding, if he's really donating all his royalties, then Xinhua News Agency and People's Daily should definitely report on it, in theory. Didn't they report it when Zhu Rongji donated his royalties back then? If Xi Jinping donates all his royalties, shouldn't that be reported too? And he won't even fess up to how much he's raking in a year, so we're left to just take a wild stab in the dark. So I reckon Xi Jinping probably pocketed this fee himself, somewhere between 5 to 10 billion give or take.
To comprehensively and systematically deepen our understanding of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era through studying selected reading. To learn political loyalty and responsibility for our mission. Also, to learn to develop a spirit of practicality and a deep sense of compassion, and learn to develop the ability to struggle as well as a clear and resolute mind. We need to thoroughly carry out themed education to promote Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, and ingrain it into the mind, heart and soul.
Is it reasonable for Xi Jinping to be pulling in such high royalties? If he's going to take it, personally I reckon there's some issues here that need discussing. You see, he didn't actually write all those books. Take his piece on the Belt and Road Initiative, for example. It definitely ain't something he did on his own. His whole team put it together and he just read it off at a meeting. I don't know if all the pay goes to him personally. Is that really okay? Personally, I don't think that's quite right, because it's more like everyone else's job requires them to write this stuff for him, you know? Xi Jinping himself is the president of China. He already gets compensated in his wages and other special benefits. You can't just go and turn the benefits from your job into your own. You know, it's like if I hired someone to write plans for me every day, I can't just go take those plans and publish them to make money. That's just ridiculous, because I already paid you your salary. So I reckon all these works Xi Jinping usually puts out are just perks of his job. That's the first thing. The second point is even more important. These books sell like hotcakes because they're just so darn well written, ain't they? The common folks can't get enough of his book. They're snatching it up like there's no tomorrow. They're reading it over and over every day. Is there some crazy literary and intellectual prowess inside them, or what? No way. It's just the Chinese Communist Party using its authority to push these books. So this kind of using your official position to publish a book and then stuffing the royalties into your own pocket is basically a form of corruption, you know? So in my opinion, how much money Xi Jinping actually made, and if he was able to pocket any of it himself, should really be made public. Because over the years, a lot of folks have been talking about how much money Xi Jinping might have pocketed in royalties. If he didn't take it, he should just come out and say so. But if he did take it, then we ought to be talking about whether those who actually wrote them should get a little slice of that fee. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you, everyone.
Selected works of Xi Jinping, Volume 1, Volume 2, have been translated into Mongolian, Tibetan, Uyghur, Kazakh, Korean, Yi, Zhuang, and 7 other ethnic language editions. They will be published nationwide soon. Of forging unity and strength, the party committees at all levels should make studying selected readings of Xi Jinping's works a top priority and place it in a position of great importance. Closely integrate learning and implementation of the spirit of the 19th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, as well as the study and implementation of Xi Jinping thought on socialism, with Chinese characteristics for a new era. Coordinate and encourage all party members and cadres to engage in dedicated learning.
读书，我想这是一个终身的爱好。
我那个时候不晓得他的文化程度那么低，你们知道吗？他小说